to the very first episode of Surviving Everyday Stress with or without IBS. This is my co-host Baxter, and we're here to provide a new channel that will offer advice, support, and tips for those people who are suffering from general anxiety disorder and sometimes along with that, irritable bowel syndrome. I have had irritable bowel syndrome for the past 6 years, and I'm looking forward to connecting with other people who are trying to deal with this disease on an everyday basis. I kind of got this idea a couple of years ago because I was struggling through the disease basically on my own, and my husband had reconnected with a childhood friend who also had irritable bowel syndrome, and he and I were able to start sharing stories and telling each other the things that had been working for each of us, and it just felt great to have someone to talk to about these things. So I figured there were probably other people out there who were having the same experience that maybe really needed to connect with someone and talk to them. We're not always able to talk to our doctors about the symptoms that we're experiencing, or a lot of times we don't even talk to them about the emotional side of having irritable bowel syndrome and how difficult it is to deal with on an everyday basis. Maybe you have stomach pain every day, and so you're dealing with having to miss work. You're missing out on family events because you just don't feel well enough to go. And a lot of us don't have anyone to talk to about this. So I'm really hoping that everyone is going to feel comfortable with sharing their story in the comments and letting all of us kind of provide a support group for you so that you know that you're not alone in this disease. Maybe you're wondering if you have IBS and you're really not sure what it is. So first, let's start out by talking about what is IBS. Irritable bowel syndrome is a common disorder that affects the large intestine. It is a type of functional gastrointestinal disorder. These conditions, also called disorders of the gut-brain interaction, have to do with problems in how your gut and brain work together. Approximately 25 million Americans have a functional GI disorder. These account for 40% of a gastroenterologist's practice. 50 to 80% of people who suffer with this disorder do not consult their physician, although they may take over-the-counter medication and have significantly higher rates of job or school absenteeism. Symptoms of IBS include abdominal pain and cramping, bloating, diarrhea or constipation, heartburn, and a host of other symptoms. I have experienced all of these over the past 6 years living with IBS. There is no test for IBS, and the causes of IBS are unknown. Diagnosis relies on the types of symptoms, the context in which they occur, such as if you're under stress, and the frequency. There are a lot of treatment options for IBS, and you'll really need to experiment to find out what works best for you. Changes in diet have worked great for me, and that's something that we'll talk about a lot. I've also used yoga and meditation to help me deal with stress. There's prescription and over-the-counter drugs and other therapies like massage therapy and acupuncture. If you'd like to do some research on IBS on your own, some great places to start are WebMD, the Mayo Clinic, and the American College of Gastroenterology. So I'm happy to share with you my story about how I got irritable bowel syndrome. And over the years, I've never really been great about dealing with stress, so my body's found really creative and interesting ways to deal with it on its own. I did suffer for 2 years with chronic fatigue syndrome, which happens when your body's under a lot of stress and it stops producing the hormone cortisol. So I was nauseous every morning, I was extremely tired. I went to the doctor, all of my tests came back normal, thyroid normal, blood work normal. They just told me that I was depressed, which I was not depressed, I was just tired. And so I finally ended up, my sister-in-law was a massage therapist at the time, and she worked in an office with a nutritionist, and she said, hey, you've tried everything else, why don't you try talking to the nutritionist? She was amazing. She had me fill out this 18-page questionnaire, and she immediately knew what was wrong with my body, and so she put me on a low-carb diet with a ton of vitamin C, and she also prescribed to me something called Mitochondrial Resuscitate, which was created for the cyclist Greg LeMond, who was the first person to actually be diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I only had to take this for a month, and basically what it did was it jump-started my body back into making cortisol. So she was like, oh yeah, you're gonna feel better, you know, in 4 to 5 days. And I was like, no, there's no way, because I've been feeling terrible for 2 years basically. She was right. It was totally amazing. Everything got jump started again, and I have never had that problem again. So fast forward 14 years, and now I'm working full-time in higher education at a university, and I decide that after all this time, I'm going to go back and get my master's degree while working full-time. So you can imagine, it was an accelerated program, everything squashed into 18 months for a full master's program, which normally would take about 3 years. And I was also working full-time, looking after a household and a family. And again, it was extremely stressful. And again, my body found a really interesting way to deal with it. And that is how I got irritable bowel syndrome. So that is my IBS story. I've been living with irritable bowel syndrome now for 6 years, and I'm still struggling with anxiety, and I still get stressed out very easily. So it's an ongoing battle. IBS is not something that's going to go away, so I just have to keep at it and just keep trying to get better at dealing with stress, because as we all know, stress is not going to go away. It's in our lives every day, and it's just a matter of how we deal with it. So I look forward to hearing all of your stories in the comments below. I will be posting something every week, probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you're interested in being made aware of when new videos are coming out, please subscribe to my channel. Next week, I'm going to talk about the #1 thing that really changed my life as far as irritable bowel syndrome goes. In the beginning, I was really struggling. I was having stomach cramps and bloating and spending hours in the bathroom, and this one thing really changed everything for me. So please tune into the next video to find out what that is. And if you're wondering about my shirt, I also am a big advocate for animal rescue. Baxter, that you see at the beginning of every video, is my 4th rescue dog out of 5, and I've had him for 11 years now. So at the end of every video, I will remind you to adopt, don't shop, and have a great day, everyone. I'll see you next week.